Why is everyone sleeping on the biggest underdog story in crypto history? Stick around because what I just discovered about XRP versus Bitcoin could flip everything that you thought you knew on its head. Okay, picture this. I'm sitting at my desk, morning coffee in hand, phone in the other, doom scrolling through the usual mix of cat videos and market charts. Suddenly a headline smacks me in the face. WisdomTree, the same asset manager giant that kind of babysits more than $116 billion, is basically asking, how tall does XRP have to grow to look Bitcoin dead in the eye? And my jaw drops harder than Bitcoin in a flash crash. I slam my mug down, some coffee may have met an untimely end, and dive in, because when TradFi royalty kind of starts crunching the numbers for an XRP spot ETF, you know something spicy is cooking. And let's be honest, who doesn't love the same fresh gossip that could make or break a bag? So grab your favorite snack, because I'm about to walk you through what WisdomTree found, why it matters, and why this whole thing feels like the ultimate David and Goliath rematch. Only this time, David's wearing a shiny Ripple logo on his hoodie. Oh, and quick sidebar before we kind of hit hyperspace. If you ever find yourself yelling at the screen because you need a place to kind of geek out over charts and memes, the link to our totally free crypto Discord server is sitting right down there in the description. We'd love to see you there, so flexing your kind of TA skills or dropping that one GIF that nobody's seen yet. Also, if you're hunting for a fresh trading platform and playground, check out Blowfin, the new kid with bigger swings and fewer bullies, right? Is just a click away in the same description. Sign up, start trading, and thank me later. Okay, let's set the stage. Bitcoin, born in 2009, is the OG crypto. The granddaddy whose face you'd kind of carve on Mount Crypto More if such a mountain existed, I should say. Now, right now, if it kind of commands, I guess, more than half of the entire crypto market cap, roughly $2 trillion, maybe a little bit less at the point of recording, give or take, daily mood swings. Now, institutions, they treat it like digital gold, right? Fortress money that you hodl when governments get kind of weird with money, with their money printers, right? Now, it's scarce, it's hard capped at 21 million, and the network is so decentralized that even my grandma couldn't shut it down if she tried, and trust me, she's unstoppable when she's angry. XRP, on the other hand, strutted onto the scene with a different vibe. Instead of shouting store of value, XRP whispers, let's fix global payments. So think of it as the FedEx of crypto. It's cheap, it's fast, and of course, it's I guess allergic to long layovers. Now, Ripple's on-demand liquidity already runs remittances for partners like Tango and pre-funded Nostro accounts required, or at least no pre-funded Nostro accounts required, I should say. Now, cross-border transfers arrive faster than your friend's GM on crypto Twitter. So while Bitcoin kind of flexes its scarcity, XRP flexes actual utility for banks, remittance shops, maybe even grandma's side hustle. But here's the kicker. Despite that utility, XRP's market cap sits around $145 billion. That sounds huge until you compare it with Bitcoin's $2 trillion behemoth. Now, WisdomTree crunches the numbers and says that for XRP to dethrone Bitcoin, it needs a 14x price pump, taking it from roughly $2.49 to a spicy $34.86. Suddenly, going to the moon feels more like going to low Earth orbit, right? Now, you got Sistine Research and Bobby A are even floating targets as high as $50, while Telegon, I should say, politely tells us, sure, but maybe by 2029. Now, opinions everywhere really, but they kind of all point in one direction. That's some serious upside potential. Now, if you're staring at that 14x multiplier thinking, that's impossible, remember how quick markets shrugged off impossible, right? 10 years ago, Most of us still kind of paid late fees at Blockbuster, right? Things change fast when tech meets money. And XRP's deflationary twist, that's each transaction that burns a tiny bit of supply, adds rocket fuel. So where Bitcoin supply stands still after each halving, XRP's supply quietly melts over time, like ice cream on a Dubai sidewalk. Let's talk speed, right? Bitcoin toddles along at about 7 transactions per second, with final settlement taking minutes if blocks are busy. Now, XRP rips through 1,500 transactions per second, TPS, and settles in seconds. That's not just fast for crypto, that's fast enough for Visa's lunch break. Now, banks love that, right? Because in finance, time literally is money. So every extra minute of settlement locks up capital that could be earning elsewhere. So imagine running a lemonade stand, but every sale takes 10 minutes to show up in your cash box. Now, you'd be bankrupt by noon. Now, XRP fixes that for trillion-dollar institutions. They see those numbers and just drool. But XRP's Achilles heel has never been the tech. Right? It's actually been perception and regulation. Right? Remember the SEC lawsuit in 2020? Yeah, the courtroom drama that dragged on longer than the final season of Lost. Right? Even though Ripple scored big wins, like Judge Torres's famously declaring XRP itself isn't a security, many US institutions stayed on the sidelines. Right? Nobody wants to pop champagne while the ref is still kind of checking VAR. So, the first real challenge that WisdomTree highlights is regulatory clarity. Right, we need a green light so bright that even the most risk-adverse compliance officer can't ignore it. Enter the XRP spot ETF filing. Now, WisdomTree isn't a no-name upstart, right? They run funds that mum and pops hold in retirement accounts. Getting their stamp of approval isn't just about easy exposure for investors. It's a gigantic trust signal. Right? Picture Wall Street suits who previously kind of side-eyed XRP, suddenly kind of sipping oak kind of milk lattes and talking about cross-border liquidity plays. Well, that's when real capital flows in. The second challenge, adoption at scale. Sure, Tranglo and a handful of early adopters use on-demand liquidity, but imagine if a global spanning bank like HSBC flipped the switch tomorrow, right? Or if every remittance corridor out of the Philippines fired up XRP rails, right? We're talking billions flowing back and forth daily. Volume begets liquidity, liquidity begets confidence, and confidence begets price action. So it's kind of like a circle of crypto life. And right now, XRP is just waiting for the kind of Simba moment roar. Okay, let me drop a quick personal story. Last month, I sent a friend in Australia some cash for a surfboard. Long story, don't ask, right? I tried the old school bank route first, Swift fees, that kind of looked like a phone number and a delivery ETA of whatever the planets kind of aligned. Now I bailed and used XRP powered corridors instead, right? The money got there in seconds and the total cost was less than the foam on my cappuccino, right? And that's the kind of real world aha moment that turns skeptics into, well, true believers. Now let's crank up the tension, right? Imagine XRP does hit $34.86. On paper, that's a 14x pump, but in narrative terms, that's a cosmic shift. Right, Bitcoin maxis will need a fresh argument to flex, right? Ethereum holders will quietly update their spreadsheets. Meme coin traders might realize utility actually matters. Shocking, I know. And meanwhile, of course, Ripple just keeps assigning kind of partners, burning kind of I guess minuscule amounts of XRP each and every single time there's a transaction, and smiling politely at reporters who once dismissed them. But here is the plot twist that nobody's talking about. Bitcoin's dominance isn't just price. It's kind of brand gravity, right? It's the first, it's the name, or that your cousin will still call everything internet money recognizes. So for XRP to truly overtake Bitcoin, it has to win hearts and minds, not just dollars. Right? That means clearer messaging, everyday examples, and yes, TikTok explainers. So think of it like the Coca-Cola versus some hip new kind of kombucha, right? You can you can say out vitamins and out probiotic and kind of out eco-friendly Coke all day, but until grandma starts ordering it in restaurants, the war isn't over. And Wisdom Tree essentially says, fine, you've got speed, you've got institutional utility, now prove that you can scale perception. And the good news? Momentum is finally shifting. XRP's price has already kind of narrowed the gap since December, and if you've been watching markets long enough, you know narrative flips can snowball faster than a meme goes viral. One bullish court ruling, one major bank partnership, one ETF approval, suddenly everyone's rewriting their investment thesis over lunch. Okay, let's zoom out and geek out a little bit. Right, we've never truly had a dual moment, kind of a hard cap store of value, Bitcoin, and a kind of high throughput cross-border liquidity token, XRP, in the same kind of heavyweight class. Like, they've solved very different problems. So comparing them is kind of like comparing a Swiss vault to a kind of global highway system. But investors often see ticker symbols and market caps, and if utility starts to matter more than scarcity, the scoreboards can of course flip. And so all of this raises a personal challenge for anyone holding either asset. How do you position yourself? If Bitcoin is your digital gold, do you ignore XRP's potential because blockchain's not decentral enough? Or do you hedge a piece of your stack, right? Likewise, if you're an XRP fan since, let's say 20-cent days, do you double down or do you keep an eye on the macro and remind yourself nothing pumps forever? Now, my take, purely my 2 cents and my 2 satoshis, if you will, is diversification with conviction, right? Keep a core position in what you believe, but don't marry a single ticker. And yes, I'll be transparent. After reading Wisdom Tree's report, I opened Blowfin and grabbed a bit more XRP for my medium-term bag. The interface was slick, the fees didn't make me cry, and their kind of security setup looked pretty solid. So if you do the same, the link is in the description down below. Earn some sweet sign-up perks, but as always, do your own research, right? And I'm just the messenger who kind of spills coffee and occasionally buys way too many altcoins. Now, let's hit the crescendo, right? Imagine a world where Ripple unveils a headline partnership, say a G20 central bank corridor pilot, on the same week that the SEC gives up its last appeal and Wisdom Tree's ETF goes live. Right, that triple kind of whammy could spin up a feedback loop. ETF inflows jack up liquidity. Institutions see liquidity markets and jump in. Higher demand sparks price momentum. Mainstream press covers it and retail FOMO piles on. That's how 14x moves happen. Not in slow, ordinary steps, but in violent bursts. Markets love overcorrections. Okay, before we exhale, quick recap for the memory bank. Bitcoin sits king at about $2 trillion, prized for scarcity and decentralization. XRP, tailor-made for rapid settlements, is only $145 billion today, but needs 14x move to match Bitcoin's crown. It's faster, deflationary, and increasingly battle-tested in real payments. Regulatory clarity and headline adoptions will be the kind of twin rocket boosters. Now, Wisdom Tree's ETF filing pokes the first hole in the old institutions won't touch XRP argument. Analysts see $33 to $50 targets this cycle, and oh yeah, each XRP transaction burns supply, unlike Bitcoin's fixed cap, which just sits there. The next 3 months could be the most dramatic chapter yet for both assets. If you're passionate about the play-by-play, jump into our free crypto Discord. We dissect price action, celebrate wins, and laugh through the dips together. Seriously, it's the best place to toss around hot takes without kind of scaring your non-crypto friends. And if you're ready to ride the waves, check out Blowfin. The doors are open. Grab the link that's in the description below, snag the bonus, and test drive their charts.